a whole quarter, 13 Sabbaths on Job. Well, we're going to look at a different aspect. Today, the title, Lesson 8, is Innocent Blood. Well, that applies in a lot of different ways, isn't it? I did a search. I did a search for the word innocent in the Bible. I think it was 36, 37 times. I forgot the number exactly. I started looking them all up, and then I should have written the number down. But it's 30-something times. And first time it's mentioned is, where would you think innocent would be the first time innocent is mentioned?
Like Abel?
That's what I would think.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, he eventually gets referred to in the book of Hebrews, but the first time in the order of books in the Bible, it's in the book of Exodus. Chapter 23, verse 7. Somebody would like to read that. If you find it, first to find it gets to read it.
23, verse 7.
That's right.
Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked.
Don't slay the innocent and the righteous. Are the righteous innocent? I guess that kind of goes together, doesn't it? Who does slay the righteous and the innocent? It says it right there. I will not justify the wicked. The wicked are the ones who slay the innocent. That's why they're wicked. And he's not going to justify that. He's not going to forgive those kinds of acts. Can you think of somebody who slayed an innocent man? But he was forgiven. David and Uriah, the Hittite, right? Don't slay the innocent. That's one of the things we think of. Well, what was the first innocent to die in this world?
A lamb?
An animal. Probably a lamb. I would think that would be fitting, wouldn't it? In the symbols that God has chosen. Why lambs?
Because they're probably one of the meekest animals, maybe?
Yeah, and they don't put up a fight. Let's go to Isaiah 58. We're going to get there later on, but right now in this, we're talking about this and lambs and how they behave. Isaiah 58, verse 7. Who's got that?
Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry? And
No, Isaiah 53. I said 58 by mistake because a 3 looks like an 8 in my mind. I don't know what I was thinking.
53 verse 7?
Isaiah 53 verse 8, not 58.
Verse 7?
53 verse 7.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth.
Not only is a sheep before the shearers dumb, but a sheep before the priest who's about to, sacrifice the sheep. Or the repentant sinner who brings the lamb and has to sacrifice it himself. Now, it's interesting, we say the bleating of the sheep. Bleating. Bah. I guess that's bleating, right? But they bleed too. They were sacrificial animals, and they're a type of Jesus who went to the cross without opening his mouth. And Pilate was so amazed, he says, aren't you going to say anything to defend yourself? Don't you realize I have power to offer you up, to crucify you? I have power to save you. What do you have to say for yourself? Jesus didn't resist. What does Peter say? 1 Peter 1, verse 21. Or is it 19? 19, 20? Somewhere around there. 2 Peter. 1 Peter. Whoops. 1 Peter 2. Sorry. 1 Peter 2. Let's start with 21. Christ who suffered for us, leaving us an example. Why is he an example for us? Are we going to suffer? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do suffer. And how did he suffer? We are to suffer like Jesus suffered. Depending upon his Father, he left us an example, and we should follow in his steps. He didn't do any sin. He was innocent. Neither was there any guile in his mouth. He hadn't said any false words. When he was reviled, how did they revile Jesus? We don't know where you came from. Our father is Abraham, but as for your father, who knows? You son of a... Yeah, that's the way they talked. And they treated him as an illegitimate bastard, right? I mean, these are shocking words for us to even think about applying to Jesus, the Son of God. And yet that's the way he was addressed and treated from youngest childhood. Can you imagine how damaging that could have been to Jesus to be treated by his classmates, his schoolmates, all the kids on the block?
He was homeschooled.
He was homeschooled, that's right. But he was reviled from the earliest ages. I guess he got used to that. By the time he was an adult, he knew where his father was. He knew who his father was. At the age of 12, or at least there's indication, he was about his father's business. He was reviled. He reviled not again. Now, isn't that human nature? You say bad words to me, I can think of some pretty bad ones to say back to you. Huh? We even the score. You knock the chip off my shoulder, I'll knock your block off.
I think it's interesting. We as humans want to defend ourselves and to prove everybody that they're wrong. And
yes.
Jesus knew it wouldn't matter. Whatever he said, it wouldn't matter.
No, it wouldn't make any difference.
But eventually, the truth always comes out.
The truth will prevail. And if the Son of Man, what is it? You shall be free indeed. The truth shall make you free. And if the Son of Man make you free, you shall be free indeed. Because he is the truth. Okay. When he suffered, he threatened not. You do that to me, I'll make your life so many. You don't. Threat, to try to protect ourselves. That's why we threaten. But committed himself to him that judges righteously, his Father. So, innocent, this whole study of innocence goes way back. This is an interesting one. Deuteronomy 19, verses 10 and 13, talk about the cities of refuge. Now, the cities of refuge were set up as soon as they came into the promised land. Moses was giving them instructions what they were going to do when they got in there. This is before. That they were to set up 6 cities of refuge, 3 in the north, 3 in the south. So that if someone accidentally harmed somebody seriously and the family members were going to come and vengeance on him, and this was an accident. I didn't do this intentionally. He could run to the cities of refuge and have a trial and a hearing, and he'd be protected there until the truth came out. And it says in verse 13, but innocent blood spilt in anger will have no refuge. So the cities of refuge were only for those who were truly innocent. What makes you not innocent? premeditated. Right? You decided you're going to do this, and you do it. That wasn't no accident. This was intentional. Well, there's no refuge, no protection for you. And it says, put away the guilt of innocent blood. Now this comes up several times. You're going to hear this over and over. Deuteronomy 21, 1-9. What if you come across somebody out in the field and they're dead? How did this happen? There was no witnesses. No one knows how this happened. It's an unsolved mystery. Well, the instruction is that you go to the nearest city, closest to the scene of the crime, where the victim was found. You take a heifer. What's a heifer? A young female cow that's never been yoked. You take it down into a rough, uncultivated valley where nothing has been growing, no crops are growing. Cut off its head. Then the elders of that city, who are the closest relatives, wash their hands over the beheaded heifer, saying, my hands are innocent, had not shed any blood, we had not seen this with our eyes. Thus shall you put away innocent blood from among you. Now that's a funny ritual. But I think it was intended to bring out the truth. Someone convicted in their heart, unless they were cold, heartless. Anyway, you wonder why these things were instructed that way. Deuteronomy 27:25. Cursed is he that takes a reward to slay an innocent person. If you've taken up the occupation as being a hitman, you're cursed. Because you're going to be taking the life, shedding the blood of an innocent person. You let the judges decide that. You let the community, let's have them all make the decision, not one person, even if you're paid to do it. Especially if you're paid to do it, you're cursed. 1 Samuel 19, Jonathan appealed to his father, why will you sin against innocent blood to slay David without a cause? Why? What was Saul's cause? Why did he want to kill? Why was he chasing, hunting him down?
Jealousy.
He knew he had been anointed to be the next king. And he knew that the kingdom had been taken away from him. And he was going to try to solve this problem himself. Jonathan, the one who should have been the next king, right? He's Jonathan's son. He's trying to protect David. Saul's son. What did I say? Jonathan's son. Jonathan is not Jonathan's son. Jonathan's Saul's son. 1 Kings 2:31. Solomon instructed Benaiah to execute Joab. Joab had been running away. He had killed Shimei, and he's running for his life. And I don't know where. And some of the other guys running real fast, and he kills him too. Anyway, he comes to the temple, and he goes into the altar, and he hangs onto the horns of the altar. I guess this is where you go. This is the city of refuge, if you're closest to the temple. I'm not sure where that rule came from, but there's where he was, and he thought he would be safe there. And Solomon said, go ahead and slay him, even though he's holding on to the horns of the altar, that you might take away the innocent blood which Joab had shed. Innocent blood. 2 Kings 21:16 says, Manasseh shed very much innocent blood, filling Jerusalem from one end to the other. A massacre in the city of Jerusalem of innocent people. The blood was flowing everywhere. Manasseh was the most wicked king of all, ruled the longest, 55 years. Job. Yeah, now we're in the book of Job. He talks about innocence. This is the chapter before. We've got a reading in chapter 10. We're going to look at that in a little bit more detail in a minute here. Job 9, verse 28, Job says, "You will not hold me innocent." Verse 33, "There is no daysman between us to lay his hand upon us both." He's talking to God. I want a mediator. I want somebody who can reach out to you and reach out to me, and because I feel so separated. I don't have one I can talk to that understands me. Job 33, verse 9. "I am clean without transgression. I am innocent. There is no iniquity in me." Job keeps appealing to this. I can't think of anything I've done that should have deserved all this. Psalm 10, verse 8. "The wicked murder the innocent in secret places." That's where they like to do it you don't want to do it out in the open where everyone can see you. You got to get it off somewhere where you can do it in secret. Psalm 94, verse 20, 21. "The throne of iniquity condemns the innocent blood." So there are rulers, and we fight not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and rulers in high places. Here's thrones of iniquity in high places. They condemn innocent blood. There are powers of darkness who would, if given the opportunity, remove every living person on the earth. That's how Satan, he just wants to destroy God's creation. Especially the innocent. In verse 23, "The Lord my God shall bring upon them their own iniquity." Well, they're going to do that. That's going to, what you do unto others shall be, it's going to come back to you. It's kind of the reverse of the golden rule, right? Psalm 106, verse 38, "The children of Israel shed innocent blood of their sons and daughters, sacrificing them to idols." Those babies that were put on the red-hot arms of the Molech bronze statue there, with fire burning underneath the arms to get them red, incandescent, and you put that little baby on the arms. Innocent. There's innocence. Matthew 27:4, there's only 2 times in the New Testament, Judas cries out, "I have betrayed innocent blood." It's too late. Couldn't reverse it. In the same chapter 24, Pilate cries out, "I am innocent of the blood of this just man." And he washed his hands. Huh? He tried to be innocent. Well, last week, you remember the title of the lesson was Retributive Punishment. Retribution. Well, retribution is getting your just desserts, right? You sow tares, you're going to reap tares. You do something bad, what goes around comes around, we say. You get what you deserve. That's retribution. And the punishment that comes from that is sometimes, the person sets themselves up for it. What does it say in Psalm 9? We were in Psalms a little earlier. Psalm, chapter. Well, let's start with 7. And 7 and 9 both have it. 7:15. Let's start with 14. "Behold, he travails." It's talking about, you have to go back to 11. "God is angry with the wicked every day." Okay, it's talking about the wicked all the way through here. "He travails with iniquity. He has conceived mischief and brought forth falsehood." Verse 15. "He made a pit. He dug the pit. And he put a little net over the top of the pit and put some leaves on it there so it doesn't look like it's a hole. And then he's right in the pathway of his enemy, and this man's going to come along and fall in the pit. And he turns around to go home, and he falls in it himself. That's what it says. He digs a pit and falls into the ditch which he has made. His mischief, verse 16, shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealings shall come down upon his own pate, or his scalp. And then in chapter 9, this is repeated again, verse 15. So you got 7:15, you got 9:15. The heathen are sunk down in the pit that they made. In the net which they hid is their own foot taken. So this is a principle that God has. It's a law of justice. He's going to have these people that conspire to do evil. It's going to come back on them, and somebody else is going to conspire to do evil to them. Haman, yeah, excellent example. He built this gallows for Mordecai, and he ended up being hung on his own gallows. That's the whole principle here that is being presented. But Job's situation is different. And we're talking about evil people doing evil things, and they're going to have evil done to them. That's retribution. But Job hasn't done anything evil to deserve all this. He's innocent. He recognizes he's innocent. In fact, God says he's innocent in the very beginning. Have you not considered my servant Job? He is perfect in all his ways. He's innocent. So why is he getting all this treatment? This is not fair. And Job's saying, this is not fair. But we know more about the story of Job than Job does at this point. We can see behind the scenes. We saw that. We saw what was leading up to this. We saw the prequel. And we know that there is more to this than even Job realizes. He didn't deserve what he's suffering. He's innocent. His servants were innocent. His livestock was innocent. His children were innocent. Yet all these bad things happened to good, innocent people. Why do the innocent suffer? Reminds me of Psalm 2. We were right here in the early part of Psalm chapter 2. Verse 1. Why do the heathen rage? What happens when the heathen rage? What do? You ever seen people in a rage? You've heard about it out on the freeway, right? Road rage. What do people do when they have road rage? Some terrible things that they would not normally do. I hope they wouldn't normally do. Why do they do this? Why do the heathen rage? And the people imagine a vain thing. Why do they imagine a vain thing? They think they can destroy God. That's the vain thing. This is going to go on to say that. Can you destroy God? Can you fight against God? That's what Saul was asked on his way to Damascus. Can you kick against the goads, the pricks, the things on the yoke, the team that the oxen are on, so that they keep them in line from going astray? You know, these sharp things are... You don't want to do that. It's just going to hurt yourself. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds and cast away their cords from us. We're going to try to live without God. Is that possible? Can you live without the life giver? No. I found, I was looking for why do bad things happen to good people? on the internet, did a Google search, found a website, an online article. They said there's 4 possible reasons why the innocent suffer. Number 1, maybe God has reasons for allowing evil to do all these horrendous things that we simply just don't understand. Well, that's true. We don't understand why this happens. And then it goes on to say, after all, His ways are higher than our ways, Isaiah 55, verse 8. So just accept it. There's some things we just can't understand. Well, I'm so thankful that we know about the great controversy. It explains a lot. And we know that there's more than just God. You can't blame everything on God, like the insurance companies try to do. Acts of God. Number 2, it says, maybe God is letting evil run its course to prove that evil is bad, malignant, and leads to death. Well, that is one of the reasons, I think. He does want us to learn that lesson. Number 3, God is allowing people to exercise their free will. Well, you can choose to do bad things, and a lot of people make that choice. And God lets them. He doesn't always protect the innocent. He allows evil to do evil things. Number 4, suffering is good for us. It teaches us patience. Okay, Romans 5, verse 3. Joseph said, you thought it evil to send me down to Egypt, but God did this for good, that I might be a savior and save life. So bad things can be turned into good things. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. Right? Romans 8:28. Well, I think let's go back to the great controversy idea. We know that there's more to things that happen in this world just than God's, certainly not His choice, maybe His permissive will. It's certainly not His intended will, His perfect will. There is a very real devil fighting against a real God, and we're caught in the crossfire. We're casualties in the war that began in heaven and has come down to this earth. Well, God is able to prevent all collateral damage. He is almighty after all. So there's where the problem comes, and we say, if He's able, I know He is able, then why doesn't He, in every case, protect the innocent? If He's really stronger than he that is in the world, 1 John 4:4, then why doesn't He show His strength, exercise His protection all the time? Well, the only way that our Creator could stop all evil would be to stop all evil thinking. Right? Where does evil begin? In our hearts. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh, and the hand committeth. Acteth. Right? We think it and then we do it. We think it and we say it. And the only way that He could prevent anything like that from happening, or allow evil only to inflict damage on evil, and that happens too. So evil begins in the minds of men, tempted and controlled by the forces of darkness, but God, who desires the freedom of His creatures, will not force the will. Okay. Here's where I need to turn on my remote here. See if this will work. Where are we? He takes no pleasure. Oh, we need to shutter it here. He takes no pleasure in a forced allegiance, and to all he grants freedom of will, that they may render him voluntary service. His, all he grants. How have I got his up there? That's Desire of Ages 493. Now, somewhere. 466. In the work of redemption there is no compulsion. No external force is employed. Under the influence of the Spirit of God, man is left free to choose whom he will serve. In the change that takes place when the soul surrenders to Christ, there is the greatest sense of freedom. If the Son shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. Real freedom. Not just the alleged freedom that the serpent offered to Eve. You shall be as gods. Sounds like you'd be free, right? Oh, God can do whatever He wants to. I can do whatever I want to. I don't have no more rules. Compelling power is found only under Satan's government. He uses what God will not and cannot use, and that is force. He can lie, he can threaten, he can harm. And so Lucifer is given freedom to act the way Lucifer acts, and the fallen angels are allowed to follow him. The unfallen angels were free to doubt God. He didn't flip any switches in their brains and force them to think a certain way. Job is free to trust God or curse him and die, as his wife suggested. He's free. And Job is struggling with the unreasonableness of his situation. So let's look at Job chapter 10. Go back here. Got some time to look at some of his complaints here. Verse 1. Who wants to read verse 1? Got a microphone over there? Yeah, go right ahead.
My soul is weary of my life. I will leave my complaint upon myself. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul.
When your soul is bitter, it's pretty easy to complain about that. And you feel weary of life. You ever tired of living? What was that song? No. Was it 16 Tongues? No, it was summer. It was tired of living and scared of dying. That's right. That's what was that? Summertime? Was that?
It was Old Man River.
Old Man River. It is Old Man River. Okay. Well, Job is feeling pretty depressed, and if life is going to continue like this, I'm not sure I want to sign up for it. He's weary. I'm tired. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired. I am weak. I am worn. Right. He's feeling that way. This is the way Job is feeling. Look at number 2, verse 2. I will say unto God, do not condemn me. Show me where, for you contend with me. Why are you doing this to me? Show me. He's from Missouri. He wants to be shown. Show me state, right? God tells us that He will show us things. What? When? Jeremiah 33:3. I think it's 33:3. Isn't it? Call upon me, and I will answer thee. Call upon thee, and I will show. He will show. He will show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. He will show us. Call. And so Job's calling. Why are you doing this? He's going to get an answer later on. Verse 3 and 4. Somebody want to read that? Verse 3 and 4. Who's got the mics there? Put one in the back row. You got some people back there? Come on, other people read some verses here. You got to have a microphone so we can all hear you. Verse 3 and 4.
Job chapter 10, verse 3 and 4 says, It is good unto thee that thou shouldest oppress, that thou shouldest despise the work of thine hands, and shine upon the counsel of the wicked. Hast thou eyes of flesh, or seest thou as man seeth?
Okay, he's asking a question. Is this right, that you should oppress the work of your hands? What's the work of his hands? Job and his children. You're the creator. You've made it, and now because Job's still got this mindset that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, right? He thinks that this has all come because God is doing this to him. His situation is different. It's not retribution. There's more going on than Job realizes at this point. But then look at 4. This really gets. Can't you see? Don't you feel the way I feel? Can you see what I'm experiencing? Don't you have the eyes, human eyes? Did God have human eyes yet? Well, He's the Creator. Does He know how we feel? He says He does. But the time is going to come when the Word is going to be made flesh. And He's going to experience what we experience. He's going to see things like we see them. And yet, He also has divine eyes and a divine mind, and can be that daysman between God and His creatures. Verse 7. You know that I am not wicked. You know I'm innocent. And there is none that can deliver out of thine hand. Oh, that's interesting. You remember Jesus said that once? John chapter 10. Let's turn to John chapter 10. He's talking about being the good shepherd. And the sheep, the good shepherd takes care of his sheep. And none can pluck them out of my hand, he says. In verse 28. Neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. Verse 29, my Father which gave them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. So, they're not going to pluck them out of my hand, and even, we got double backup. My Father's going to let them be plucked out of His hand either. So there is protection. There can be protection. He is able. And Job, I think, senses this. He knows that this is the way it ought to be. And he's appealing to him. That this shouldn't happen. He shouldn't be allowed to... Thine hands have made me and fashioned me, yet you destroy me. Well, he still thinks that God is doing all this to him. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Verse 9, remember that you made me as the clay. What does David say? We're in Job here. The next book is Psalms. Psalm 103. Psalm 103. Come on. He says, verse 13, like as a father pities his children, so the Lord pities them that fear him. For he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. That's what Job goes on to say here, right? 9, and wilt thou bring me into dust again? Kind of referring back to what Adam was told. From dust thou came, and from dust thou shalt return.
Just watching Job go through this mind game that he's having, it just seems like he knows that his Creator is loving and kind, and he can't make sense of it. It contradicts his situation for what he knows about his Father, but he can't explain it, and he's questioning. Help me. I want to understand. How do I make sense of what I know to be true about you, but yet the reactions that I'm going through are not concise or consistent with who your character is.
Something's wrong here. Help me understand. Yes.
And I know I've been in those shoes before. I think others have struggled. It was nice what Adrian brought to the table a couple weeks ago to help us understand the true character.
Well, he's obviously confused by this. Look at verse 15.
Mm-hmm.
He says, look, if I do wrong, if I'm wicked, then woe to me. I deserve it. But if I'm righteous, I'm not going to boast about it. I'm not going to be proud. But I shouldn't be treated this way. Therefore, I am full of confusion. Yeah, I'm just confused by why this is all happening. And then verse 18. Why did you bring me into this world? Brought me forth out of the womb. Oh, that I had just died at childbirth. Given up the ghost. I could have been stillborn and it saved me a whole lot of misery. Verse 19. I should have been as though I had not been. Now, this is said elsewhere about the wicked, the heathen. They shall be as though they had not been. You've heard that before? Obadiah, verse 16. I think it's verse 16, yeah. Verse 15 identifies the heathen. They shall be as though they had not been. But Job is innocent. He's not heathen. And then 21, he's going to where he will not return. He's going to the land of darkness, the shadow of death. He's really depressed here. He sees no way out of this except to die. Bad things happen to good people, and the best example of all... Oh, I got another picture here. When we were talking about none shall pluck them out of my hand, I got this PDF from Cindy Hayne yesterday. And it's a collection of all these drawings from back in the 1940s, I think it was. It looks they're pretty aged. But this is kind of an interesting one. It's the verse right before the one where it says, and they can't pluck them out of my Father's hand. This is the verse that Jesus says, they can't pluck them out of my hand. He's walking through the valley of the shadow of death, right? Bad things happen to good people. Right? The one that is the best example of all, even better than Job, is Jesus. He was the innocent one, to whom all those sacrifices for 4,000 years was referring to, pointing to, a symbol of. They were innocent. Their blood was being shed. They didn't deserve to die because He is going to come and die for us. Did not deserve to die. He is innocent. and all that man needs to know or can know of God has been revealed in the life and character of His Son. So if we have any doubt or confusion like Job had about what the Father is really like, Jesus said, I'm come to remove all that confusion. I'm going to tell the story once and for all. If you have seen me, how I treat other people, how I speak, how I conduct myself, that's exactly how my Father behaves. And you can trust Him. Believe in God, believe also in me. If you can believe in me, then you can believe in my Father also. So, Jesus comes to really show us, remove all the confusion. And as He revealed the character of His Father, Satan mustered his forces to break that perfect revelation. Steadily and faithfully, Jesus continues His witness, and Satan is obliged to try ever harder to make Him fail. So he turns up the heat as He gets closer and closer to Calvary. Jesus is going to the cross, the ultimate sacrifice, and the revelation of the righteous character of God at its glorious, undimmed best. Eternity will never again be able to provide so complete and clear a manifestation of God as He really is when we look at how Jesus died on the cross. It is the central high point of history, past and future. It is the pinnacle of all divine achievement. The best and the worst side by side, and the contrast could not be mistaken. The whole universe is watching. The matchless unfolding of God's righteousness at its very best forced the devil to reveal his own evil character at its very worst. He had no other choice. Could he just give up and say, oh dear, I better not really kill the Son of God or else I'm going to look bad? He's going to lose anyway. So, the only alternative he's got is to pull out all the stops and give everything he's got to this onslaught at the cross in the hopes that he might break the faith of Jesus and his dependence on his Father. But he failed. The unfallen universe saw the full manifestation of divine light and satanic darkness side by side. What a contrast. And Satan's cause was lost forever. Game over. He's lost. Jesus says, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. What Jesus accomplished at the cross never needs to be repeated. It was one sacrifice for all time. And He's not coming back to this earth to repeat that demonstration. He has other plans for us. The full and final display of the merciful, gracious, kind, good, and just character of God is to be given through His people. The purpose of the great controversy has not yet been fulfilled for man. You know, the angels, they know now. There was uncertainty up to the cross, to the time of the cross. The ones that remained loyal still had some lingering doubts. Maybe Lucifer's, his logic was pretty convincing. Maybe God's still going to change here. You know, He's going to come out and do what Satan says He's going to do. The war is not over because the rest of the universe needs to know if God's plan to restore man will really work. They know He can indeed forgive. That's the easy part. But is God able to change man's hearts? Is He able to make us into stable, reliable citizens of heaven? The angels in the other worlds, they're concerned about that. They don't want to have somebody who might fall all apart and decompensate and come unglued and revolt, and hey, here we go again. No. Are we going to be sealed for eternity? Never change. Well, here's where we come in our lesson to where is it here? Romans 3. It has it in the beginning there, and then I don't see where they are.
Romans 3:10 to 20?
Yeah. It's quoting Psalms, but he collects them all in one spot there, so that's why we quote that. It has it at the very beginning, and then I was looking through the lesson to see where it was actually used. But it says that there's no, all have sinned, there's no righteous, no, not one. That's the reality of our current thing. We lie, we deceive, we're violent, we shed blood, we destroy, we cause misery, we don't care about God or anyone else. Just to quickly summarize those verses. Is God powerful enough to change that? He's able, I know He is able to carry us through. But is He able to change the leopard spots? Every Christian must understand their role in giving the final revelation of God and His character. Failure to comprehend this will lead to inadequate preparation for and disqualification from fighting in the last battle in the day of God, Lord God Almighty. Well, here it says, this great controversy, page 593, in order to endure the trial set before them. Now, the them and the they, this is the context here is the people of God who are living through the final time of trouble. This is down at the end of great controversy. They, that's these people, must understand the will of God as revealed in His Word. Do you understand God's will? What is His will? They can honor Him only as they have a right conception of His character. What if we have a wrong concept of God's character? Will we be able to play our part at the end of time?
No, we won't be in His will.
Well, let's give a yes. That's very true. We won't be. What if we have the wrong concept? And we come to the end, and there's going to be a death decree. And even before the death decree, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to suffer and lose their lives. We're going to be sacrificial animals in some cases, those who do not live to see Jesus come. Are we prepared to be a sacrificial animal? Maybe suffer like Job. Though He slay me, yet will I trust Him, Job says, right? Do we have the faith of Job? Do we have the faith of Jesus? Jesus suffered and died. We have to understand the character of God. What is His... will we defend ourselves? Will we fight force with force? Will we stock up our ammunition and barricade ourselves for the final shootout? What is God's character? The government and his purposes and act in accordance with them. Well, these are serious questions. I think we all need to seriously consider them before. Make me a sacrifice. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice. Now, which is greater, to die for God or to live for Him? Which is more challenging? A living sacrifice. It goes on and on, doesn't it? So in order to endure this, we need to understand that force and freedom are directly opposed to each other. They are mutually exclusive. They cannot coexist. The existence of force is contrary to the principles of God's government. He desires only the service of love, and love cannot be commanded. It cannot be won by force or authority. Desire of Ages, page 22. Now, there was another picture in Cindy's PDF of all these old illustrations, and this was interesting. Love is the foundation of God's government. The foundation of God. Stand assured. 2 Timothy 2:19. Love undergirds God's law. It's the foundation of His love. His law, Romans 13. I think it's verse 10, says love is the fulfillment of the law. Mercy and justice is written on the wings of these two angels. And you remember the tips of the wings touched each other. And he says, mercy and justice have kissed each other. They've met together. God never compels the obedience of man. He leaves all free to choose whom they will serve. So the angels told Adam and Eve that God would not compel them to obey. It's from the story of redemption, page 30. I didn't put it up there. God made them free moral agents, capable of appreciating the wisdom and benevolence of His character and the justice of His requirements, and with full liberty to yield or to withhold obedience. You're free to choose. You can do one or the other. It's up to you. What are you going to choose? Our Father, however, does not give His creatures the freedom to sin with impunity. I think this is... No, I got another one. Some have supposed that God is so loving, so forgiving, so patient that He's going to excuse and protect all sinners so that none should perish, right? Well, He's willing that none should perish, but all should come unto everlasting life. But the sad fact is that the way is narrow, and few there be that find it. Well, it's dangerous thinking to think that God's going to just forgive everybody. Sinners will die. Heavens and earth will be destroyed. The entire universe will be cleaned from the stain of sin. But He will first warn every created being of the terrible consequences that will come to those who choose the path of disobedience. And when they do choose that path, He will then still extend every effort He can to save them for pursuing it. You may get on that path, but He's still going to try to keep you from going down that path. Only when they persist in rejecting His saving efforts will He finally leave them to perish. This earth has become the battleground of the great struggle between good and evil. Satan can and will use deception to gain support for his cause. God will only deal truthfully. He can only say the truth. Satan can and will use coercion, pressure, threats, torture, pain, suffering to achieve his goals. God's approach must conquer on its own merits without any assistance from overwhelming power and force. Now, it was not until the death of Christ that the character of Satan was clearly revealed to the angels and to the unfallen worlds. The arch apostate had so clothed himself with deception that even holy beings had not understood his principles. They had not clearly seen the nature of his rebellion. I think very close to this in Desire of Ages it also says that it was at the cross that the last link of sympathy with Satan was finally broken. So, man, if it took that long for angels, it's going to take a real eye-opener for us to see the difference. So, Job longed for a daysman. Christ came to the earth to reveal to men the character of his Father. Jesus, the express image of the Father's person, the effulgence of his glory, the self-denying Redeemer, throughout his pilgrimage of love on earth was a living representative of the character, the law of God. God's amazing grace. Christ, the outshining of the Father's glory, came to this world as its light. He came to represent God to men. Christ object lessons. Job longed for a daysman, someone who could reach out and grasp the throne of divinity and yet also touch the hearts of man, and to bridge that gulf, lay his hand on both, as Job says. And in the fullness of time, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, to do just that. He sent his only begotten Son into the world that we might live through him. 1 John 4:9. He was treated as we deserve, that we might be treated as he deserves. He died the death that was ours, that we might live the life and have the life that is his. The innocent for the guilty. When we talk about innocent blood, it's the blood of Jesus, first and foremost. So what are we? But just vessels that God has made to show his glory, just as his Son came to reveal the glory of his Father. We have that opportunity. What a wonderful privilege. Let's pray as we close. Thank you, Father, for giving us the assurance and the example in the life of Jesus that we can, like him,